The lights went down in the screening room. Woody Allen sat in the back row, hands trembling against the armrest. For 20 years he had made people laugh. Tonight, he was about to show them something he had never dared before. His pain. And he was terrified they would reject it. The projectionist threaded the film through the machine. The mechanical click, click, click echoed in the silence. Woody felt his throat tighten. Around him sat critics, studio executives, friends who knew him only as the neurotic comedian in thick glasses, the man who turned anxiety into punchlines, the writer who made Manhattan intellectual life into comedy gold. But the film about to unspool was not a comedy. There were no jokes, no pratfalls, no witty one-liners about death or relationships or psychoanalysis. Just silence, grief, and the slow dissolution of a family. Just beauty that hurt to look at. Just truth that offered no relief. Interiors. That was the title. A single word that promised exactly what it delivered. An examination of what lived beneath surfaces, inside rooms, within hearts that had learned to perform rather than feel. Woody had written and directed it as an act of artistic desperation, knowing it might destroy everything he had built. And now, in this small screening room in Manhattan, the gamble was about to be called. The opening frame appeared. A beach house, muted colors. Gordon Willis's cinematography rendering the world in shades of gray and beige and emotional absence. No music, just the sound of waves. Woody closed his eyes. He could not watch, not yet. But the real story had never been only about the film. Brooklyn, 1950s. A boy named Alan Konigsberg sat in darkened movie theaters every chance he could, escaping a childhood that felt simultaneously ordinary and suffocating. His parents argued about money, about ambition, about the gap between what they wanted and what life provided. The boy absorbed it all, storing away observations that would later become material. But even then he understood something crucial. Watching pain on screen was bearable. Living it was different. He discovered comedy as self-defense. Make them laugh before they can hurt you. Control the room by controlling the punchline. By his teens, he was writing jokes for newspaper columnists, getting paid to turn anxiety into entertainment. The transformation had begun. Alan becoming Woody, the scared kid becoming the wise-cracking persona who could say anything as long as it was funny. Stand-up comedy came next. Small clubs in Greenwich Village where cigarette smoke hung thick and audiences were brutal if you failed to deliver. Woody developed a character on stage, the neurotic intellectual, afraid of everything, analyzing his fears until they became absurd enough to laugh at. It worked. People loved the routine. He was good at it. But being good at something does not always mean it satisfies the part of you that needs to be understood rather than entertained. The 1960s brought television writing, then film work. What's New Pussycat made money, but taught Woody that he could not trust others with his vision. Take the Money and Run proved he could direct. Bananas and Sleeper established him as a comedy filmmaker. Then Annie Hall happened, and everything changed. Critical acclaim, Academy Awards, proof that comedy could be art. Yet even as Annie Hall won Best Picture, even as the world celebrated his achievement, Woody felt the distance growing between what audiences wanted and what he needed to express, between the persona and the person, between laughter and truth. That was where the real tension lived. He had always been obsessed with Ingmar Bergman, the Swedish master who made films about faith, death, marriage, mortality, all the subjects Woody joked about but secretly took seriously. Bergman's work was what Woody watched alone, late at night, studying frames like sacred texts. The cinematography, the silences, the willingness to sit with human suffering without offering easy resolutions. Woody wanted to make a film like that. A film that did not hide behind humor. A film that acknowledged the emptiness he sometimes felt despite all the success. But making such a film meant risking everything. His audience expected comedy. Studio executives expected box office returns. Critics expected the neurotic Woody they had learned to appreciate. What if he showed them something different and they rejected not just the film, but him? The fear was paralyzing, and yet the need to try was stronger. Late 1976, Woody began writing what would become Interiors. He told almost no one what he was working on. The script emerged slowly, painfully, like excavating something buried. It was about a family falling apart, a mother's mental illness, 3 sisters trying to survive their childhood, a father who wanted life to be easier than truth allowed. No jokes, no relief, just the ache of people trying and failing to connect. He knew it was good. He also knew it was dangerous. When he brought the script to United Artists, the executives were confused. "Where are the laughs?" they asked. "This is what I need to do," Woody replied quietly. They greenlit it anyway, trusting his track record, probably assuming he would sneak comedy in somehow. He did not. Casting was crucial. He chose Diane Keaton, Geraldine Page, Maureen Stapleton, actresses who could carry emotional weight. He hired Gordon Willis again, but this time asked for something different. The visual language of Bergman, sparse, controlled, beautiful in its restraint. Willis understood. The cinematographer who had made Manhattan's black and white frames iconic now created images that felt like looking at paintings of loneliness. Filming was quiet. No jokes between takes. No lightness. The crew could feel Woody's seriousness, his vulnerability. He was exposing himself in ways that terrified him. Every frame was a confession. I am not just the funny man. I contain this, too. The sadness, the beauty, the awareness of mortality. But making the film was one thing. Showing it to the world was another. Post-production stretched across months. Woody edited obsessively, removing anything that felt false. The film had to be honest or it was worthless. When he finally locked the cut, he felt both relief and dread. It was done. Now came judgment. The screening tonight was not the premiere. That would come later. This was for industry insiders, critics who mattered, friends whose opinions he trusted and feared. The room held maybe 40 people, small enough to feel intimate, large enough to be terrifying. Woody had arrived early and chosen the back row. He wanted to be invisible, wanted to watch the audience watching his vulnerability projected 20 feet high. As people filed in, he recognized faces. Pauline Kael, the New Yorker critic whose opinion could make or break films. Studio executives who had financed this risk. Fellow filmmakers who knew how much courage it took to abandon what worked and try something new. They did not know what they were about to see. The marketing had been vague. A new film from Woody Allen, that was all. Let them discover it in real time. And now the film was starting. On screen, the family gathered, wealthy, educated, cultured, everything privilege could provide except happiness. The mother, played by Geraldine Page, controlled her environment obsessively, the color of walls, the arrangement of furniture, because she could not control her mind. The father wanted out. The daughters were trapped between loyalty and survival. Woody watched the audience more than the screen. He had lived with this film for 2 years. He knew every frame. What he did not know was how they would receive it. In the darkness, he could see faces. Some leaned forward, others sat very still. No one laughed, because there was nothing to laugh at. 15 minutes in, no one had walked out. That was something. The film moved slowly, deliberately. Scenes played out in real time. Conversations happened the way real conversations did, with pauses, with things left unsaid, with the weight of history pressing on every word. Gordon Willis's camera observed from a distance, respectful but unflinching. Woody had studied Bergman's technique. Let the audience work. Do not hand them easy emotions. Make them sit with discomfort. Trust that they can handle complexity. But trusting his audience and trusting that they would accept this from him were different things. 30 minutes in, the mother's mental illness became undeniable. Paige's performance was devastating, controlled on the surface, fracturing underneath. No melodrama, just the slow collapse of a woman who had built her identity on surfaces and was discovering they could not hold. Woody heard someone in the third row sigh. He could not tell if it was appreciation or frustration. The film continued. The father, played by E.G. Marshall, announced he was leaving. The daughters reacted with varying degrees of anger and resignation. Family dinner scenes played out with excruciating politeness masking rage. Everyone performed their roles while slowly suffocating. This was what Woody understood. Performance as survival. The gap between who we are and who we show the world. He had built a career on that gap, turning it into comedy. Now he was examining it without the safety of laughter. 1 hour in. The audience remained. Woody allowed himself a small breath. They were staying. That did not mean they liked it, but they had not abandoned it. Yet. On screen, the mother attempted suicide. The scene was handled with terrible beauty. No music, no dramatic camera work, just the aftermath, the discovery, the numb shock of people confronting what they had refused to see. Woody heard a woman in the front row crying softly. He felt his chest tighten. The film was working. On someone. Maybe. The cinematography throughout was stunning. Willis had created frames that looked like Edward Hopper paintings, beautiful in their emptiness. Rooms with perfect lighting and no warmth. Windows that showed landscapes no one looked at. Spaces designed for living that felt like elegant tombs. This was the visual language Woody had been reaching for. Beauty as a kind of violence. Aesthetic perfection that could not save anyone. The sisters fought, reconciled, fought again. Diane Keaton, who had been so vibrant in Annie Hall, played the most controlled sister, the one who tried to hold everything together through will and denial. Her performance was all restraint, which made the few moments when emotion broke through devastating. Woody had asked his actors to do something difficult. Be truthful without being theatrical. Find the real feeling underneath and trust it to be enough. They had delivered performances unlike anything in his previous work. 90 minutes in, the film was approaching its climax. The mother, released from the hospital, returned to the beach house. The father arrived with his new wife, played by Maureen Stapleton. Warm, uncomplicated. Everything the mother was not. The collision of these worlds, these approaches to being alive, created unbearable tension. And then the film reached its final sequence. The mother walked into the ocean. The camera watched from a distance. No music, just waves. Just a woman choosing to end her pain because living with it had become impossible. The screen went dark. Credits rolled in silence. Woody had not included music even here. The film ended as it had begun, with the sound of water and the knowledge that beauty could not protect you from anything. The credits finished. The lights did not come up immediately. The projectionist, sensing something, waited. 40 people sat in complete silence. Woody's heart hammered. This was the moment. Acceptance or rejection. Validation or humiliation. 5 seconds of silence. 10 seconds. 15. Then someone began clapping. Slow, deliberate. Not enthusiastic applause, but something more considered. Someone else joined, then another. Within 30 seconds, the room was applauding, not standing ovation, not wild celebration, but sustained, serious recognition. Woody felt tears he had been holding for 2 hours finally escape. He had done it. He had shown them who he was beneath the jokes, and they had not rejected it. Not all of them, anyway. The lights came up. People turned, looking for him. He stood, accepting handshakes, hearing fragments of reaction. Brave. Beautiful. Completely different. Devastating. Pauline Kael approached. Woody braced himself. Kael could be brutal. "You took a real risk," she said. Her face was unreadable. "I had to," Woody replied. She nodded slowly. "I know. I could feel it." That was not quite approval, but it was not dismissal either. It was acknowledgement. Over the following weeks, Interiors was released to the public. The reaction was divided, exactly as Woody had feared and expected. Some critics celebrated his ambition, his willingness to grow beyond comedy. Others accused him of pretension, of imitating Bergman without earning the right. Audiences who came expecting another Annie Hall left confused or angry. Box office was modest. The film would not be a commercial success. But something else happened. Other filmmakers watched and understood what Woody had done. He had refused to be limited by expectation, had chosen artistic growth over safety, had proven that a comedian could contain depths that comedy alone could not express. The film received 5 Academy Award nominations, including Best Director. It did not win any, but the nominations themselves were validation. The industry recognized the attempt, even if the general public remained uncertain. More importantly, Woody had proven something to himself. He could survive artistic risk, could show vulnerability and not be destroyed. The terror he had felt in that screening room had been real, but so was the courage it took to sit through it. Years later, Woody would say that Interiors was the film that freed him, not because it succeeded commercially, but because it gave him permission to follow his instincts rather than expectations. It led to Manhattan, to Hannah and Her Sisters, to films that balanced comedy and drama without apology. But that night, in the screening room, he could not see the future. He could only feel the terror of the present, the gamble of showing his true self, and the fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, being seen was worth the risk of rejection. The lesson was hard-won and simple. Artists grow by abandoning safety, by making the work that terrifies them, by trusting that truth, even when it is painful, matters more than comfort. Woody Allen made people laugh for 20 years before he dared to make them feel. The film that resulted was not his most popular, but it was the one that proved he was more than the persona. He was an artist willing to fail in pursuit of something real. And sometimes, that is the bravest thing a person can be.